getting harder to find a job in tech in 2023. Layoff tracker layoffs.fyi reveals over 120 tech companies have laid off more than 37,000 employees since just the start of this year. Microsoft announcing Wednesday it would lay off 10,000 workers to cut costs. Julian Sazzi spoke to a number of execs at the World Economic Forum in Davos this week about layoffs. Here's what they had to say.
Anything that has people implications are probably the hardest decisions we have to make as executives, but at the same time, they are the right thing to do for the success of the company.
I think it's pretty difficult to say. I think the next couple of quarters are really going to tell us what's really going to happen in the economy.
So while we are not in a position to have to do layoffs, we certainly have, slowed down hiring a bit during the back half of the year.
I think when we see a lot of peer companies laying people off, when we see people in the tech industry really struggling, the idea of throwing in flying in a big performer, spending a ton of money on a lavish party didn't make a bunch of sense.
It did, however, make sense for Microsoft. That was Cloudflare, who really scaled back what they normally do around this time when Davos ends. Microsoft, however, had Sting flown in for a private performance before announcing those aforementioned layoffs the very next day. I don't know if you subscribe to the theory that that is insensitive. I do not. Look, I'm an expert in being laid off and or fired, and you still have to concentrate on building morale within your company, rewarding those employees who are serving you well, building clients and doing business, and that's what they're doing, provided they provided severance to those employees, which Satya Nadella did.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think if you take a step back, one of the big reasons why so many well-known CEOs, why so many policymakers go to Davos is because it is a very efficient way to meet with so many people that make the most important decisions around the world. When you take into account who is there, most of the top CEOs from all the largest companies, a number of policymakers, a number of other leaders from around the world, it makes a heck of a lot of sense why they're spending the money at Davos. I can sympathize with some of the workers that have been laid off. If you see that they're spending so much flying and staying for this performance, I think it would kind of sting you a little bit if you were one of those people
Pun very much
intended that were laid off. But I do think the reason for Davos, why that money is spent, makes a heck of a lot of sense because, of course, it is investing for the future and for those future deals. So
I put out some calls. I'm hearing it costs between $500,000 and $1 million to fly in someone internationally of his status and have him perform. So
that's
certainly
actually less than I would have guessed.
Pretty steep though, around $1 million. Now the tech layoffs will certainly continue. I think we'll know we reach that peak if Apple ever decides to join the fray, which, quite frankly, it does not appear. But 150,000+ layoffs last year. What happened to the unemployment rate? It went down to a 50-year low, 3.5.
Yeah, we're going to be hearing a lot more about this over the next couple of weeks when we get the earnings reports from all of these larger companies. It's supposed to be one of the toughest earnings quarters that we have had in a long time when it comes to tech. Tech sector earnings expected to decline nearly 10%, 9.5% this earnings season.